All right, welcome to Podcast PD. It is Sunday. Thank you for joining us if you're watching us live on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. And we're about to record episode 93 of Podcast PD. Let's do this. Yeah, what? All right, so this is the fun part that is only in the YouTube video and doesn't make our show. So, AJ, do you want to do what you wrote at the coming up? Do you want to do that?
I'm going to do it now. This is how we do this.
That doesn't go in the show?
Yeah,
no, it does.
Confused.
Don't be confused. Just you read it, and then I'm
just going to talk. Coming up on episode 93 of Podcast PD. As connected educators, we understand the importance of finding others that share our passions. But how do we connect and make meaning from and get value from? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Who wrote that? Who wrote this?
Yeah, how do you get meaning from and value from?
Wow.
Being connected.
I feel like I'm Stacey here doing like a second take. Coming up on episode 93 of Podcast PD. As connected educators, we understand the importance of finding others that share our passions, but how do we connect and make meaning from and get value from being connected?
This is Podcast PD, the show that provides you with anytime, anywhere professional development. Our conversations and guests will provide you with the learning you might get in a faculty meeting or on a PD day. Except you're going to have more fun with AJ Bianco, Stacy Lindis, and me, Chris Nessie. Let's start the show. What's going on, podcast people? Happy Sunday. It's a super Sunday, and we are here doing episode 93. I am joined, as always, on this tricycle of professional development with my two favorite wheels in education, Stacy Lindis and Albert
Jefferson
Bianco. Thank you, Stacy, for playing the game. Stacy Lindis, how are you?
I'm all right. Chris, you're riding that analogy of a tricycle really hard.
Well, how else do you ride a tricycle but ride it hard?
There's a lot more exertion in a tricycle than there is in a regular bike. I feel
that's true. When there's three, it's always more work.
Yes. Anyway, I'm doing all right. I'm watching the snow come down on this beautiful Sunday fun day of games and bowls and chips and dips. But yeah, I'm doing all right. How about you? How's AJ?
Well, I'm looking out my window and all I see is, I think it's rain. So it's a miserable day here at the Jersey Shore.
It's a brand new winter wonderland. We just had one last week and it's a new one full force.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I do have something that we can throw in here.
Central Jersey weather.
I love that. Yes, Central Jersey.
Yes, it's a place, folks, especially if you're not from around here. It's a place. And if you're watching us and you're thinking, it's not a place, well, you're a fool. But thank you for listening. AJ, what's up, man?
Good morning. Good Sunday morning. And if you're listening to this in the podcast, it's probably not the morning for you, but hello. It's snowing here as well. So on top of the almost 3 feet of snow we got last week, we're going to get another 7 inches or so today.
I think we're in a different band. I think we're getting more than that.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy. Well, it's snowing here again. So it's Super Bowl again.
You mean the big game?
Oh, sorry. I was talking about soup, like the cans of.
SOUPER, yeah.
Yes, the big game is happening today, and I'm getting tired of watching it.
It hasn't even started yet. Yeah. Well, you know, something we're not tired of as we roll into the morning. First, I am doing well. Again, it's just rainy and miserable here where I am in New Jersey. And this is a special Sunday morning edition. But after the fact, it doesn't matter because this is anytime, anywhere. Good morning to Dr. Dan Kreiness checking in on our YouTube chat. And let me just start with a very special two-sided announcement. First, to Dan Kreiness, happy birthday. As we're recording this show, Dan Kreiness celebrated the big 4-0. So wow. Happy birthday. Birthday shout-outs for Dan Kreiness.
Oh, to be 40 again.
So I texted Dan the other day and I said, happy 40th. I was like, I'm scared. I'm approaching that. And,
Are you really scared?
Yeah, I don't want to be 40. You kidding me?
Oh, 40 is great.
No, it's not. I
It's
didn't even want to be
awesome.
30.
30 was also
AJ
awesome.
AJ, I'll let you know when I get there at the end of April.
Yeah.
And Caitlin and I were talking the other day. She's like, so what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. It's my birthday. It's like my day. I'm not scared. It's not the middle of my life. You know, I kind of take that Gary Vee approach of, yeah, I'm turning 40, but I probably got another 60 years left. So
I turned
this is
40 and
nothing.
I went to Disney. Like that's without my children. Turned 40, went to Disney, ran a race without my children. Just saying.
I'm not going to Disney.
I'm not running a race. So
Chris does CrossFit.
I do CrossFit.
And you have a Peloton.
But I don't talk about it.
Hey. So you want to talk about that tricycle again? No.
Well, no, let's talk about Dan's 100th episode.
Yes,
That's
that's
a
the
big
other
deal.
thing. So first, happy birthday to Dan. And Dan recently released his 100th episode of his Leader of Learning podcast. And of course, he is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. So that's why we're taking extra special time here to shout out one of our own. So Dan, congratulations on your 100th episode. Continue to lead, continue to learn, and continue to do the great content you're putting out there. We love it.
Here's to the 100.
Cheers.
Another 100. We're going to get there soon too.
We're on 93.
93. I haven't looked at the calendar, but I guess we're, 14 weeks away. I guess if, we do the every 2 week thing. So whatever that is from now, April-ish, maybe we'll celebrate my birthday and the 100th episode.
Well, that makes sense.
I'll turn
because
40 and we'll
April-ish-
do the 100th episode.
But April-ish is when we founded, right? April 12th,
Yes.
whatever year.
Yes. Podcast PD rose around the time the Titanic sank, I guess.
Wow.
It is what it is. But that would just be another great podcast of a bald white guy with glasses turning 40 and celebrating his 100th episode.
There you go. Full circle. Must be
Full
an
circle.
Education Podcast Network thing.
Yes, there you go.
AJ,
Speaking,
you and I had to become bald white men.
That's what I'm afraid of.
I'm 40.
what would Stacey look like as a bald white man?
I'm sure there's an app for that.
I have zero criteria for that.
All right. Anyway, so speaking of the Education Podcast Network, also want to give a huge shout out to Alfonso Mendoza, the Fonz, host of My EdTech Life. He is now a member of the Education Podcast Network. So we're very excited to welcome him into our little podcast family. And if you're not aware of My EdTech Life, go to Fonz's website, myedtech.life. And he live streams his show on YouTube, typically on Saturday mornings, but he also releases it as a podcast. And he's having some great conversations. He's a great guy, and his podcast is worth checking out and adding to your podcast listening lineup.
Absolutely. Agreed. Took long enough. But welcome, Fonz. Good to see you.
Woohoo.
Yeah, the guy who runs the network is a little slow sometimes.
So I need like a talent evaluator.
There you go. That's why he talks to people, AJ. So AJ, what are we talking about today? This is a brainchild of all of us wanting to have this particular conversation, but you really put some great notes here together. So why don't you lay out where we're going to go in this episode?
Yeah, just to put it out there, this is, let's see, it's 2021. We're still in the pandemic. And although we have been connected, and many other educators who we know are connected educators through social media and other conferences and things like that, we thought this is a good time to kind of talk about why being connected is important and to talk about all the different ways you can be connected. And Stacey, I know this is something that, you don't like, that there's just too many ways to stay connected. And, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing, but there's a lot of different things. And we're going to kind of talk about those different things today and just kind of figure out, how we could do it, how we can streamline those different tools, and what's the best approach when using those tools. And I'll put a little teaser in here. One of the things that came up, and Chris and I talk about this, is the use of Clubhouse. I think it's one of the big tools for educators right now. And it's something that we want to talk about, something we want to focus on. So, if you're in the Facebook world and you're watching this, or Twitter or Twitch, whatever else we're streaming to, jump in, If you're on Clubhouse, if you use any of these different tools that we're going to reference, we would love to hear your point of view, how you use it, and how you connect.
Yeah. So as you're watching, as we're talking about these different platforms and how we use them, make sure you are sharing your usernames. If you're listening to this after the fact, make sure you're connected with us in the many places that we are going to talk about, because it's safe to say that the three of us, we do get value from being connected and having conversations. And we're always looking for new ways to do it and new people to connect with, because that's part of the value of, being a connected educator. And I'll throw out one of my views right away. And that is, being connected for me is not just about connecting as a teacher and an educator. I get value as a person. And I believe that if we go through personal development and personal growth and try to be the best person we can be, that's going to impact us far beyond our profession. So if we're growing as people, we are growing as husbands and wives and parents and friends. And I think that just goes to leading a good life. And, raise your hand if you don't want to lead a good life. For those of you who are listening, nobody has their hand up. We all want to be good people. So it's not just, we can't just compartmentalize our development and how we interact with other people, because it all ties together.
I think you're onto something there, Chris. And I think it's something that we'll definitely talk about. Like, thinking going into this whole Twitter thing when I got started in 2009, I think it was, I focused on many different things. Then I kind of narrowed my search. And now, as I am, as you said, father, husband, I kind of look for different things. Leadership. It's not just educators anymore. It's a lot of things that are going to help me become, the better person that I want to be. So I'm looking forward to this.
Stacey, how did we meet?
You and I, or the three of us?
Ladies' choice.
Oh, ladies' choice. So we all connected. Well, you and I connected through, I think it was EdCamp, New Jersey, when it was in not New Brunswick. Where was it? One of the Brunswicks. East Brunswick?
I think it was in North Brunswick.
North Brunswick. Yes. And we connected through that. And I remember I registered, and you were the person who was responsible at the time for responding to people who registered and giving them an image to put up, right? Saying that they were attending EdCamp New Jersey. It was a little license plate. And you mentioned that you were a podcaster. And I was like, that's so cool. Who knew that there were podcasts about education? I like listening to podcasts. I listened to, at the time I was listening to a running podcast and a podcast about Harry Potter. And it opened up a whole crazy new world. And then I fangirled and followed you when EdCamp New Jersey came up. I fangirled, followed you to your first session about creation versus curating. And I was like, oh my God, I listened to your show. It's so great. And the rest is, as you would say, history.
And I will never forget that moment.
Me neither.
Where, because you have been such an instrumental person in my life, professionally, personally. You're just one of those people. We talk about the 5 people. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You're one of my 5 people, along with AJ. And it's our relationship has just been amazing. So I'm not trying to suck up to you, but I will never forget meeting you and having you say, like, you were the first person who I met face to face who said, you listened to my show.
Was I really?
Yes.
I don't think I knew
I got like some emails and, people on, on Twitter, but that was very early on in the process. And that it just meant the world to me that, we got to connect. And, I love to connect with my listeners, but you are, I think, listener number 1. So.
That's awesome. And then AJ and I met at EdNATO. We connected though.
I remember that.
We connected though via Twitter, right? So Chris and I through a conference, AJ and I through Twitter. We were both part of BSC 530, which if you're looking for, it was the best gateway into Twitter chats for me because it was steady. It was a small, tight-knit community. It wasn't one of those over large chats where you felt overwhelmed. I really felt like I connected with a lot of people through BFC 530, and it was a great chat. And then somehow we would continue the conversation. I wasn't sure. I'm not sure. AJ, that wasn't Voxer was not involved in that, right? Like,
No, I don't think we did Voxer until after EdNATO.
and then, so then we met in person at EdNATO. I think for some reason we were already dressing up like you and Chrissy were dressed up as superheroes,
Right,
in your session. And then I think that Ed Justice League was born that day.
Because Adam was there and Danny was there.
Yeah.
And that was where Voxer became like our professional development tool, where we started a Voxer group to talk with each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly that's how it started. I met Chris at Teach Meet back in
2015.
It was either 2012 or 2015. I think it was 2015.
The Shadow was pregnant,
right?
So who was she pregnant with?
I think that was pregnant with Daniel. I think she's pregnant with Daniel at that point. I think.
And that was where he came up to me.
Oh, it wasn't Caitlin.
Lunch.
No, it was not.
No, it was not Caitlin. So AJ comes up to me, and we have our name tags on. It's like lunchtime, and he comes up to me. He's got his like plaid button-down short sleeve shirt on, looking all professional, and I'm there shorts and t-shirt and flip flops because that's how I roll. And he's like, "You're Mr. Nessie," and I'm like, "You're AJ Bianco," and
then I walked away.
Since then, and then he walked away.
No, see, I was supposed to, this is what it was. It was Teach Meet 2015. I was supposed to go to the EdCamp, like that original one, but that's when Ryan was born. So that's why I wasn't there, because it was November and Ryan was only a couple of days old at that point. So I decided not to leave Jamie with a newborn baby. So
You're
to go to EdCamp.
Which I was like, I'm not going. But imagine that. We could have been at 200 episodes by now.
Could you imagine?
No, I can't. Still trying to figure out how we're going to get to 100.
1 weekend at a time.
So that's how we got connected. And Stacey, what popped into my head when you're talking about BFC 530 and the intimacy of that chat, I can't help but think that how could that chat not be very intimate when it takes place at 5:30 in the morning?
But you have to think about
go ahead. I was saying, you're not going to get chat size numbers at 5:30 in the morning during the week. So
but you
it's
have to
a wonderful
remember
chat.
that
I do agree.
Jessica Raleigh, and I forget the gentleman who started it with her. His name is just flown out of my head, but they started it and they were running it in 3 different time zones within the US. So that was the other thing. Like if you were up for the 5:30 chat on the East Coast, you also had the advantage of like bringing in New Zealand and Australia, and every now and again, Craig Yen would be on there, and that would blow my mind because I was like, what is this dude doing up at 2:30 in the morning. Right. And so, because he was in California. And so if I could steal some time from coaching and stuff, because at the time I was a coach, I would like log in for the other sat chats at school, or not sat chats. I'm sorry, BFC 530s, because they were running at different times. And now it's run by someone else. It's not the same, but I still think that it has like that same quality of being like a good first chat to get involved in, because it's not the sat chat, right? Where everybody is awake. It's a Saturday. BSC 530 takes place every day. So you're making those connections. Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know if this is shifting gears, but that's how we got connected. I'm sure anybody who, you who's listening, you are in some way a connected educator, whether you use Twitter or Voxer or, listening to this podcast, you might feel connected to the 3 of us, even if we've never spoken, which, by the way, if you listen to this podcast and you've never reached out to us, feel free. I'd like to think we're all pretty approachable. Even AJ, you will reach out, you can talk to us, and we would love to know who you are. So please take the time to do that. Email, Twitter, or any of the ways we're going to talk about that we are functioning out there in the world. But what I want to ask is, has being a connected educator benefited us? Has it benefited you guys? Like, have you been able to reap rewards from it? Has there been fruit on the tree professionally that you've been able to get value from beyond our friendship and the people that you've got connections with? Like, how has this impacted you guys professionally?
Do you want to
So
start, AJ?
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have no problem starting. So for me, I'm gonna have to say yes. Like I feel like this has totally helped me grow. And I don't want to get into like my personal story here. It's a different podcast for a different time, I guess, right? Literally a different podcast. For me, I was a social studies teacher. I was always going to be a social studies teacher until Twitter, until podcasting, until meeting people who kind of pointed me and pushed me in different directions that allowed me to kind of expand my network and do different things. I was talking to somebody the other night. I remember like back in the day, like everybody was like, you want to be that ed celebrity. Like everybody wanted that, like that Twitter, well, you want to get recognized on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Like that ended for me very quickly. I didn't want that, but I started to see like the reach in New Jersey. And I really like being that person in New Jersey and New York that people kind of know, I'm putting quotes, and are familiar with, that we can make the connections more locally. I've enjoyed that, and it's helped me get to know a lot of great people, a lot of great leaders, and it really has allowed me to do a lot of things I want to do, such as professional development, CoffeeEDU, and even the position I'm in now. If it wasn't for you guys over these years, I don't think I'd be able to have the confidence to take on those other positions that I've taken on over the last 5 years, 6 years that we've known each other, and shout out to Chris with, we put this together. I can't tell you how many times Stacey and I were like, no, we don't need to go live. We don't need to do this in front of people. But like now the communication that we have like via Zoom in our world, I'm more comfortable in front of a computer, and I don't mind talking to people like this, and it's how I got the job that I have now, because I had the interview through Zoom and understand how I can communicate with people. So, you guys have, and Twitter has, and these different social networks have allowed me to grow. So that's definitely part of my story.
What about you, Stacey?
All right. So, yeah, I'm with AJ totally. And, it's funny because AJ's story is a little bit of the opposite of mine. I got connected on Twitter because my colleague Dan kind of said like that's where people were connecting. And at the time, he and I were new tech coaches together in my district. So he had been a tech coach prior. So he knew a little bit more about Twitter, and I was new to Twitter. And it was really just career changing for me. It really put me, for the 7 years that I was a tech coach, it put me in the right places, in the right rooms. It gave me the right information that I needed to grow. It connected me with you guys, which would have never happened because I would never have, I would have heard about EdCamp eventually, but I didn't go to that first EdCamp because I don't think on Twitter at the time. And then another colleague told me about the first EdCamp New Jersey, and, it grew from there. And then Dan and I went to the second EdCamp Philly. And like through those conversations and creating those connections, it led to other conferences. And for me, Twitter was the catalyst for attending different events, which is where I do my best learning and connecting. I'm more of an in-person learning, connecting kind of person than a online social butterfly. It's where I learn about the things. It's not necessarily where I connect the best, as you guys know. And I don't think that without Twitter, AJ and I definitely wouldn't have connected, or it would have been much later, and on a more probably shallow level, because those Twitter chats really just led to some interesting conversations, and then feeling comfortable to go up to someone, right? Like, I think that's also the value of having an online presence and making those connections, is you've already like jumped that first hurdle of like saying hello. And now it's just like getting like, okay, I know your Twitter handle, and now I can talk to you. I don't know, like if that makes sense, but it kind of creates that sense of ease and comfort in that, like, I already know you. I was able to talk to Jay Billy that way. And, then eventually his name just flew out of my head too, but the like Matt Miller's, and like, when I went to ISTE, Matt Miller, I knew Matt Miller because we had already connected online, right? Like that was not a hurdle that I had to jump right? And I could still fangirl about who he was and all the great work that he was doing. But he knew who I was too, which was kind of cool, right? Like it wasn't like a one-sided acknowledgement of one another. And so, and I do, you guys know this, I try to keep my social media separate, but it's like at this point it's kind of mixing together, but not quite like it's more like brownie batter where you can still feel like the granular pieces, and less like a cake batter where everything's like smooth and like whatever. But it's really interesting when your husband tells you what time you're podcasting in the morning because he saw it on your Instagram. That's what happened. He was like, so you're podcasting at 10. I'm like, oh, good. I was just looking for that. I was like, how do you know? He was like, it was on your story.
Thanks, Doug.
Right. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, honey. So
Thanks, sweetheart.
it's all kind of just mushing together in a good way. And I think that makes it easier too.
Stacey, when you're talking about, meeting people after connecting with them on Twitter in the early stages of this being a thing, I remember like I would go to conferences and I would recognize people's faces because of, their avatar, or, we would go to EdCamps and we go to conferences and, you wouldn't just say, hi, my name is, and like Chris Nessie. It would be, hi, my name is at Mr. Nessie. So you'd read people's Twitter handles at these things. So I think for many of us, Twitter was that gateway to a different way of communicating and connecting with other people in this profession. Because, when I got into it and, I heard my teachers growing up, we all heard the metaphor of, teaching is like being on an island. You go into your classroom, you close your door, and you're alone for 6.5 hours with you and your students. Right. And social media has changed that game. It went from only connecting at conferences in like your subject area or education events to you can connect anytime, anywhere, and reach out to people and ask questions, and you can learn from people. And I think that's, one of the biggest benefits, for me, Twitter, and I've told this story before, Twitter is one of the reasons that the House of Ed Tech exists and how I got into podcasting, because I wanted more people to hear what I had to say. And I got tired of being a retweeter, right? Somebody who was reading other people's blogs and sharing other people's ideas. And, podcasting was a way that I could put my voice out there literally and have the conversations I wanted to have with the people I was interested in learning from. I say on the podcast that I am learner zero because I have the conversations so I learn. And then it just so happens that I share those conversations with the world, just like we're doing right now. We're kind of sharing our story and, talking about what we get value from. And the hope is that somebody who's going to listen to this is going to say, maybe I can look at Twitter a different way or another platform a different way because I see that they're getting value from it. Maybe I will get value too. So maybe this conversation will inspire you to try something new and try something different to enhance your experience professionally and personally. And quick shout out to Dave Frangiosa, former guest of the podcast. He's watching us live. He says he met AJ through Twitter and CoffeeEDU. He's definitely pushed me as an educator, and AJ and Chris have pushed me out of my comfort zone and have been helping me put out my own podcast. That's right. AJ is on Team Push. And Dave Frangiosa is putting out a podcast. He's going to be putting it out there. So Dave, you're watching, please, drop your website in the chat, and or if you want to come on and, quickly promote that, we'd love to have you to share that. Anybody who's
or
watching,
just share your stories about connection. Yeah,
put it in the chat. For people watching live, go to podcastpd.com/join, and you can certainly come on. And I mean, if you want to tell us how you connected with us, that's cool. But if you just want to share the value you're getting and contribute to this conversation, we'd love to have you. And for you who's listening after the fact, stay abreast of when we are live, because we normally do the show live every other Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. where we're building community and connecting through the live stream, on YouTube or Twitter or Periscope or Twitch. So we're trying to model connecting with you, and we invite you to do that with us.
All right. So Twitter seems to be everyone's gateway. What else are you guys using? Like I said, I keep my Facebook and my Insta very separate. But again, there's been more crossover than normal. So do you want to talk about those, or do you want to talk about Voxer, which we've already kind of talked about, or podcast/YouTube or Clubhouse? Where do we want to go?
I'll dive in with, so for me, I keep dual identities. So I have a professional Twitter. I have a personal Twitter. I have professional Facebook. I have personal Facebook. I have personal Instagram, which for a while I was trying to keep out of the professional realms, but then I don't know, AJ kept tagging my Instagram, and it just made sense that people could connect with me through this podcast. So, at DJ Nessie is my Instagram, but I also have at House of Ed Tech, where I do content and, try to promote the podcast through Instagram that way. But so there's been that little bit of bleed over, where I'll share stuff for this podcast on my personal Instagram, but I know I'm not connecting with educators and having education connections through Instagram on my personal thing, because that's where I'll put pictures of my kids and what I'm doing personally and where I'm just kind of goofy. I'm goofy in other places, but.
Hey, Chris, can we clarify, when you say you have a personal and a professional Twitter, Facebook, Insta presence, what is your professional version? Like, do you want to share your two handles, or is it?
So my personal Twitter is at CJ Nessie, and sometimes there's people who try to follow me there, but that's where I'll talk sports, and I try and it's just totally different content. Whereas if you go to at Mr. Nessie, I'm not talking about the Yankees. I'm not talking about the movies I enjoy. I keep that more the professional side. I let my personality come through,
Right.
with things I say, or if I stream audio on Twitter, if I go live on Periscope. But in terms of the content I'm sharing, or if there's an interesting article I read, you're not going to see at CJ Nessie on Twitter talking about ed tech. Right.
See, that's really interesting, because Twitter is where it is like a fuller picture of everything that I am, right? Like my entertainment things. I'll sit there and put a company on blast if I'm pissed off with their service. It's usually where I go first, because they respond very quickly, because they don't like negative stuff on their Twitter, because it doesn't look good. But that's where it's a more rounded out picture of who I am, where my Facebook is more like friends and family, and it's becoming slightly more professional. And then my Instagram is like all the things I'm nerdy about, if that makes sense. Oh
no, I get it.
Like the passion.
And I do the same thing with Facebook, but we do have a caller. So we're going to integrate the caller into the conversation.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So Dave in North Jersey.
Oh, how's it going?
Is it snowing? I can't see through your window.
Yeah, it's snowing. Yeah. We don't need any more.
No, we're good.
No.
Yeah.
Good morning, David. How are you?
All right. How's everything going?
Good, sir. Good,
So-
sir. It's good to see you with your Mets shirt on.
Yes. Got to represent. So, but hoping that the chase for 28 goes for years to come. So, So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
We're hoping we just have to change. We just have to change the name. Just change the number as it go along.
But anyway, actually, the first of the three of you that I connected with was actually Stacey. So, Stacey, yeah. So Stacey and I were actually at an ISTE training at Riverdale High School, and without that, I never would have gotten into the Twitter world. So I didn't have Twitter. I don't do social media, any of that. And it was suggested there in that training that, go on Twitter, connect with people. And that was how I entered into this. And from there, I actually wound up connecting with a writer from Ed Week, Maddie Will, who saw some of the stuff that I was doing and wrote a piece on going gradeless. And from there, Ron Durso, who I worked with at Hackensack High School, who was friends with AJ, suggested that I go to the CoffeeEDU. And, so then I started going to the CoffeeEDUs, and what was that, about 2 years ago? Yeah. And, just kind of spiraled from there. And, just that, those simple connections, they just kind of snowball. And I mean, professionally, it definitely has pushed me. I mean, AJ's constantly sending me conferences that I'd never know existed, pushing me to submit like proposals and just kind of get our message out there, what we're doing. And like, that's been great for me. And Chris, I know you're anti-book, but he's definitely, he's definitely been helping me in that area as well. And, been a really good sounding board for me. So I do appreciate that. And then, for anybody out there that sees the tweets from Chris, if you're looking to put a podcast out there, he says he wants to help. He means it. So he's met with me a couple of times. And to be honest with you, I had no connection to Chris before the first time I actually came on the show. And you want to talk about somebody who really just like cares about education and really means that he wants to push this forward. Like, it's the truth. Everything that they're saying is it's all about connections and just like pushing education forward. So take them up on their word, connect with them. Like the first time I met AJ, like we talked about baseball, it was like I'd known him forever. Same thing with Chris, like, the way the ISD thing was run, I didn't get to talk to Stacey too much during that. So
It was weird.
It was
not my jam either.
No, but I
we
think,
did yoga. I like yoga, but it was just bizarre, right? Like ISD and yoga, my head blew up. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I feel like I'm in some kind of cult.
Yeah, but I think we did still connect, and I think I sent you some of
your gridless stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I sent that to you back then. And like, so there were connections. And when I saw this, I asked AJ, I was like, was she at ISTE in Riverdale? He's like, probably, so, but like,
but I think you and I also connected on the fact that like, I never finished that program and neither did you, right?
No, I didn't. I went through and I did the entire course. I just, I never did my portfolio. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. So I didn't see the value,
Neither did I.
Great minds, right? But yeah, and then through this, I've been connecting with educators across the country. The peg doesn't fit out in what was that? Kansas. Yeah. Great guys out there, and like, just that entrance into Twitter from ISTE has opened up a whole new world of education for me. Just getting different ideas and, like, step outside the echo chamber though. Like that's the one thing, like the one thing that I've seen is there's a lot of people who flock to people who aren't going to challenge them. So get out there, have them, like, have your ideas challenged. It's, that's how you grow. And we don't always agree, and that's okay as long as those conversations are productive. And I think we need to start using this platform a little more effectively rather than just pat each other on the back and say, hey, great job. And I'm not saying be rude about it, but let's just, if we're here to connect and grow, let's connect and grow.
Dave,
I agree.
Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I agree, like 1,000% in that, something like Twitter over the years, we've seen it become at times very much an echo chamber. It's look what I'm doing. And then how many people can I get to compliment me on what I did that's awesome? And how many people can tell me that it's awesome? Where if you're going to put yourself out there, you need to be prepared for the people who will challenge you. And it's got to be a two-way street, two doors, whatever analogy you want to come up with. Maybe the tricycle is applicable. I don't know. Probably not. But if you're going to put yourself out there, you have to welcome the criticism as well, positive and negative. And you have to be intentional about how you're going to handle pushback on what you think. Right.
Yeah.
So Dave, before you jumped in, we were talking about, and I'm sure you heard the conversation if you were in the waiting room or whatever Chris calls it these days, connecting on social media. Chris was saying he doesn't really like to have his things crossed. Stacey doesn't like to have hers crossed. Everything is kind of separate. me personally, I put everything out there because for me, you know, I know you're not part of this, but I'm going to get to this in a second. My Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter, those things are both personal and professional to me. And I feel like if you can't know me as a person, then I don't want you to know me. You know, like I have my friends, I have my family on different sites, and this is what I do. You know, if they want to know who I am, this is how they're going to see who I am. I think the only thing that's just more professional is completely. Why are you guys laughing at me?
We're not laughing at you.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Just, you know, when I actually try to sound like I have a point, now I totally forget where I'm going because you put that on the screen.
No, you do have a point.
I don't know.
I was just using the analogy.
No. Anyway, thanks.
You
Can we
overlap.
change that? Yes. Can we say that then? Anyway, Dave, you don't really have, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, this is just your feeling. You don't have much of a social media presence beyond Twitter. I know you had thought about groups in Facebook when you have the book come out. I know you thought about dabbling in LinkedIn. You know, and I know Instagram's not a thing you want to have. So why is that the case? And do you ever see yourself kind of pushing out there more? Like, you're going to be a published author, and I've pushed you. And look, to be 100% honest with the world, Dave and I have become extremely close from CoffeeEDU. I think we text each other every single day. So I try to push him in this direction. So, you know, I've never kind of got onto this, but how come you don't go beyond?
Well, all right. So for me, I'm a little bit older, and I think I kind of missed that window. So I didn't go through college with social media. So like I missed that window where people were actually getting into that and making it part of their routine. You know, when I say a little bit older, I'm 44. It's not like, you know,
I was gonna say, you and I are about the same age. I'm like trying to figure this out.
Yeah, no, like I'm not saying like I'm a world away, but it's just that window. Like I missed that window where, you know, I guess people were getting into social media, and, you know, it was never something that I got into, you know, and I guess I'm kind of a private person. Like, my stuff's not out there. I don't take a ton of pictures. I'm not out there like that. And so this stuff has really, like I said, pushed me out of my comfort zone. But I'm trying to, I set up all those things, but it's just not a habit for me. And so it's not that I'm opposed to it. It's just, I find managing it a chore. And so I'd rather manage one of them very well than try and do everything and not do it as well.
So yes, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And Chris, I don't mean to interrupt, but this is something you were saying before, right? You've got your personal, you've got your House of Ed Tech. That's you. Like, we're going to talk about brands for a second. That's your brand, right? So for me, like, I have the Reflect Ed. We all share the PodcastPD, but I don't always tweet from those or Instagram from those or Facebook from those, because this is me. I do this. This is who I am. Yes, I have kids as well, but like, I want you to see what I'm doing, and I try to put it out as best I can. Like Dave, I don't like having to go onto other accounts to try to manage those, because it doesn't work for me. That's why I push out as much as I can from my personal account. Because again, this is who I am. Like, if we're going to talk about my kids here, you might as well see who the kids are. Like we spoke about, try to avoid the names, you know, just in case of crazy people out there. But like, sometimes they're there.
See, and I think for me, I'm not much of a self-promoter. So like it was nice to hear that like Dave say what a great job everyone does at like really being sincere. Like when Chris says he wants to connect with you and push you through, like, and then he'll promote you. AJ's a really good promoter of himself and others. I'd rather just promote others. I do not self-promote. So like I've worked with colleagues for years, and some of them are still just finding out that I've been podcasting for years. Right? Because I don't talk about it. And Chris probably gives me a lot of side eye when I say that he's not doing it right now, but I'm sure he's not very happy that I'm not promoting. It's just not something that I feel comfortable doing for myself. Now, when Chris talks about House of Ed Tech and like a great episode, I'm more than willing to promote that. If AJ's talking about Reflect Ed, which AJ, I'm caught up, like I'm happy to promote that as well. But it's not like, I'm not like, hey, look at me, spotlight on me. So I get the sense, Dave, that you're kind of the same way, and maybe it is the like slight age difference that we have from Chris and AJ, you know, with those 30-year-olds and stuff. But like, but I see the value in it. I just can't bring myself to be that person. Like, you'll very rarely find anything on my Facebook that says that I have a podcast or that, you know, I'm going to this conference on Facebook, unless it's a conference that I think other educators would benefit. You know what? I don't know.
I see what you're saying, Stacey, and I got to be honest. It's because of the promotion of our podcast. It might be the reason why I have the job I have right now. I can't tell you the amount of people, and both in my district and in my school, who are like, "Heard you on your podcast. Good job." You know, and I'm like, "You listen to that." You know, so maybe that's why I am where I am right now.
Right.
Thank you, Chris. So anyway, so like sometimes the promotion is helpful. It's not self-promotion. And like, this is what I talked about with some other people at CoffeeEDU, whenever that was the last time we had it, probably like the 1990s at this point. There's a difference between like self-promotion for promoting versus like what we're doing. Like, we're not promoting like us, like, oh, we're all talking about this. When we get on here, we're going to throw Dave on this. We're going to throw another guest on here. We're going to say, we are sharing our information for you, the world. You know, here's a thought. Here's a thought. Here's a point of view that you can take with you, you know? And as Dave said, challenge it or agree with it. You know, so it's not like we're promoting like, here's everything I believe. Listen to me. I'm the all knowing. That's not what we do. It's never been what we do.
Right. We're just having conversations. And AJ, what I was saying, yes to, is like, I think there is a difference between promotion and self-promotion or marketing, right? So if Stacey were to, again, if Stacey were to step up her game promoting Podcast PD, it's not, hey, listen to Podcast PD, look at me, listen to me. It's there. You might find value in these conversations here. This is where I'm learning, and I want to invite you in to this, which is, I think, what I do with House of Ed Tech and what AJ does nicely here. So for Stacey or for Dave, as you get ready to have your podcast and you're putting yourself and your content out there in a bigger way, it's not, hey, look at me, I'm the best. It's, I think you might find value in what I have to say. Come check it out. Take it or leave it, but I think it's worth taking a look at in this space. So, Stacey, does that make it make more sense and seem less? It
makes a difference. Yes, absolutely. It's a different mindset, right? And it's less me and more we.
Yes, and don't get me wrong. You know, there are people out there who are, look at me.
Right, and I'm not. I mean, like the other thing is, like, I don't want people watching right now because, like, I'm lucky I took a shower this morning. Like, that's where it's at. Chris, this comes out of the show, and if it doesn't, Dan will tell me.
All right, hold on, let me write it down. 48 minutes in, Stacey talks about not being clean.
Oh, wow. God. That comes out too. No, I mean, like this morning I had all the remnants of dust from the work that we're doing in the house, and then I worked out and I had to shower, but then I didn't have time to put my face on. So like I don't know. Baby. Yeah.
Whose face are you wearing?
Just not, my
Are you Nicolas Cage or John Travolta?
Oh, good gravy.
Real quick, while we're sidetracked, want to acknowledge somebody watching in the chat. Enrique commented, connecting with others outside of your own school and district can give you a renewed sense of hope in your education practice, as quote unquote outsiders can give you different perspectives to reflect on.
Yeah, you know what? That is so true. Like I really, part of the reason why I decided to put out, the podcast and my information is I want that outside feedback, like sometimes we're too close to something that we can't see, what the drawbacks of it are. And that outside perspective, I can't tell you how many people outside my district help push me forward. So like, yeah, that you hit the nail on the head there.
I really like what Enrique's saying there too. Yesterday, I know we were talking about, like, it's interesting, AJ, that you're saying that you haven't had CoffeeEDU in a while, because I know that Corey Radish and Paul O'Neill have really been going strong with their CoffeeEDU Jersey Shore. And then yesterday, the two of them also helped orchestrate EdCamp Blitz again. And, you know, I think this might be the first time or maybe the second that I actually attended EdCamp Blitz, but I also was able to do that from from my own bedroom. You know what I mean? Like, again, camera off, but it was just an easy way. And like you're saying, like, the ability to not have to get up, leave the house, because everything lives in Zoom or Google Meet, that made it such an easy way to get it done and just kind of feel like we were connecting and listening to those outside voices. So I got to attend 3 sessions. I wish I had attended, not necessarily not attended those 3, but there was one that like kept being elevated at the end, where the students reflected on what virtual education has been like for them. And I wish I had gone to that. But now it makes me interested in creating a similar discussion group with my former students and students from other schools, and just kind of getting feedback from them, like students in my own district, and getting a sense of how can I be doing this better? I don't think my 5th graders are going to give me that insight, but my former 5th graders could.
All right, let's run with this for a second. And this is something that Dave has mentioned to me before. You know, CoffeeEDU through Zoom, and Chris, you were there that time. And yes, we got hit with a Zoom bomb, and I'm not even talking about this. I did not enjoy the CoffeeEDU via Zoom. I felt like it was a lot of like, kind of like what we just happened here. Like, we're talking over each other. Like, oh, wait, let me wait for you. Let me stop. Okay, hold on. Then you forget your point, and then that's it. I feel like CoffeeEDU is more organic. Like, you can have those conversations. You can move around the table, move around the room, and you can actually, you know, be part of a conversation. So I have not pushed out the CoffeeEDU via Zoom. I'm glad it's working for Corey and Paul. I know it's working. I know they get big numbers, but for me, I just find myself, you know, being in a room. The kids are going to be there. I'm not going to put myself in the basement like I am right now. But, you know, I feel like when we have CoffeeEDU and I bring the kids with me, I don't have to attend to them as much as I do at the house. You know, I feel like I have to be watching them. I was part of EdCamp Blitz for a little bit yesterday, but I just couldn't focus because, again, I had the kids. I had other things on my mind. So I'm glad that unconference, we're going to call it unconference, was successful, but it didn't feel like an EdCamp to me. It felt like somebody speaking, and then when you had your moment, you can jump in there. I mean, no disrespect to the organizers of that. I think it was going well. I was there for a session and a half, and then I just lost it. But, you know, and that's where I'm going to bring in this other idea. Chris, you're going to be with me on this one. And Dave, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this idea of Clubhouse, this could really become a game changer in the sense of education, that we can actually have these moments, we can have these conferences, and we can have these discussions that are more organic, because with this new Clubhouse app, which I didn't want to say I was a part of, and now I kind of jumped into it, I'm really intrigued by what it could turn into. Shut up, Chris. I hate you.
I'm laughing because I'm just thinking you have to know how to use it. Otherwise, AJ will just hang out and listen to Chris and Stacey talk for 20 minutes and then
and get yelled at for not participating.
And then when she
AJ, why
finally
don't you
figures it out,
speak, AJ, speak. Let me in. And there's like no messaging. I couldn't like text you.
But I didn't get it because Chris literally just showed up as part of the conversation. I expected the same for you. So whatever. User
to be
error.
fair, you were busy. You
error.
were like cooking and cutting potatoes, which we were saying, hey, if Stacey can do PD and still be cooking or doing whatever, that's probably going to be something she's into.
It was totally awesome.
AJ, you mentioned, with CoffeeEDU and, how the Zoom can be impersonal. We're going to call this quick crossover.
I don't know what's happening.
Me neither. Is this like a Jetsons, Flintstones crossover?
Yeah, there you go. So for this Podcast PD episode's House of EdTech recommendation crossover segment, I want to very quickly talk about Kumo Space. KUMOSPACE. You can find it at kumospace.com. All right. I learned about this from the Fonz. Again, we talked about my EdTech life being a part of the Education Podcast Network. Recently played with this on some live streams. This is a cool thing. I'm just going to quickly say, go to kumospace.com in your Chrome browser, sign up for free, and you can create a virtual room for up to 25 people where it looks like, Stacey, you'll probably get this. And I think we all played with color forms back in the day where you had those boards and you could stick stickers and you could play, right? It's kind of like color forms meets Zoom, where you have this room that it looks like a room and it's like a flat room, but then you have little tiles that you could have your camera on. And as you move around the room in this virtual space, the closer you are to people, you can be having a conversation. If I'm on one side of the room and Stacey's on the other side, we can't hear each other talking in this virtual space. We actually have to be within a certain radius to connect and talk to people. So I explored it with some live streaming I did recently for TCEA and House of Ed Tech, but definitely go check it out. Get a free room. It might be a game changer for, again, up to 25 people for a CoffeeEDU. I could potentially see, and I said this the other night, we're going to see, EdCamp Kumo space within the next 12 months, I believe, where you're going to have this room or rooms and a website where you could sign up for an EdCamp that's virtual, and you're going to be in this virtual space. So
I say let's create it, Chris.
Okay, let's do it. I would. My comment was, it's going to happen, but am I the one who's aggressive enough to make it happen? So, all right, I got co-planner Stacey. Dave Frangiosa is also going to be on the planning committee.
Dan's going to help.
Dan's going to help, and Enrique is going to help. So we're going to make this happen. So it's kumospace.com, and that's this episode's Podcast PD House of Ed Tech recommendation.
But that totally makes sense, AJ, what you're saying about Zoom not being authentic, because you are waiting and you can't hear people when they are talking over one another. And then, there's also, as Chris is pointing out with his Kumo space, the proximity thing, right? Like the people with whom you're sitting next to or across from are the people that you're having conversation. And then when you start having side conversation with someone who's like 3 people diagonal to you, you literally get up and move around and and it's organic and it's free flowing. And when you get up to use the restroom or go get more coffee or get food, then you shuffle. It's like a very nice natural shuffling of like the magical stairs at Hogwarts or something.
Yes. And AJ, what I can relate this to would be when we were with Jesse Lubinsky in that virtual space where we did that presentation show thing. It was like that, but not as VR or augmented reality as that experience was for us, where we were together talking to each other and we couldn't hear what was going on elsewhere in that virtual space.
Right.
I think this could be, it was like, Stacey, you use breakout rooms, right? In Google Meet? Okay. So when you do that, you don't have the ability, and even at high school, I don't know what the kids are doing in their meets unless I go from meet to meet, breakout room to breakout room. Same thing.
I wish there was like I liken it to an overhead camera. So, you see the 4 of us now. I wish that you could see like, this is this group of 4 in breakout room 1. And this is this group of 4, just to see that like Dave is nodding his head. It looks like he's participating. AJ looks like he's taking notes and Chris is getting ready to talk, right? Like, I wish I could see that. Like I was watching my children in a daycare center, but I'm watching all 22 of my kids work independently in a breakout room.
There is
Zoom, get on that, please.
There is a clunky plugin for Google Meet that lets you do that. So if your computer is fast enough, you could do that. Again, it's clunky. It's not great.
We can't use Meet.
Right. But within Kumo space, if I had a class of 20 kids in a Kumo space, I could have them grouped up. It would look like they're at tables or there's like a classroom background. I could have groups in the same space. I could megaphone and broadcast to the whole room, or I could move from conversation to conversation while they're talking. There's also screen sharing. So there, again, it's definitely worth checking out. And I think this could be something. Right now it's free. I can't say later what it's going to be, but check it out. And it's saying combine that with Go Guardian or, Hapara. That's great for me seeing what's on their screens, but I don't get the audio.
And I don't need the audio piece. I just want to be able to see what their face, like what they're doing. The expectation in my classroom is that when you're in a breakout room, cameras are on because you're a small group, right? We want some authentic connection, as authentic as being in Zoom can be. But I see what you're saying, Dan, about combining Go Guardian, but because it's a separate app on a Chromebook, you don't see what they're doing because it's not a web interface. It's an app interface. unless I'm doing something wrong. And then Dan, feel free to call me later.
So do we want to explore Clubhouse? I know,
I want to talk about it because I joined in for the first time for the second time, but the first time where it wasn't, we were wrapping up a show or having a conversation and then we all went into Clubhouse. This was more authentic to I got pinged, I joined, and I continued with my cooking while I listened to Eric and AJ and Chris talk while waiting for tacos. Yes,
that was the room I decided to start, talking ed tech while waiting for tacos, and the tacos were delicious. But AJ, what's your impression of Clubhouse?
So for me, I kind of like it. It's kind of the thing. It's kind of like the thing you were just describing, the Kumo spaces, but just not so techy. I kind of like that on Clubhouse. I can kind of be in a conversation and just listen. I can't tell you the amount of times that I have opened the app, looked for the different conversations, and just jumped into one because the title was intriguing. I've been listening to conversations from Gary Vee, from educators, from leaders, just people. The other night I was in a conversation. I pinged Chris with Brian Kite, who's a podcaster and somebody I've been listening to for years, and just kind of listened to his thoughts on something. And towards the end, there was nobody in the room, so he just started calling people up. So I hung on and had a conversation with him. And this is a dude that I've been listening to on a podcast for a while that I just kind of spent legit 5 minutes just talking about his ideas of discipline and how we can bring it to the world of education. And, I like the fact that you can sit back in a conversation. I like the fact that it's private in a way, and you're connected with the people that you want to connect with. So I know, Dave, you're not on Clubhouse, and I just sent you the invite if you want to get into it. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't do anything. It just, if you want to see what the world looks like, you can jump in. And I think, Chris, you and I have definitely been pinging each other in a lot of different conversations because I've seen a lot of value to a lot of the people who are on there. I really think you know what it is? The thing I like about it most, it's open access to anything. I mentioned Gary Vee, Brian Kite, these names. As you go through and you look for people to follow, it's names that oh my God, I read that author, and there he is holding court on a stage, and you're just listening. So you don't have to go and pay $700 to be in one of their sessions. You're getting it right there. There's podcasting sessions that Chris and I have been kind of joining into. There's voiceovers. I like the idea of voiceovers. A buddy of mine is into it, so I've been kind of following voiceover people and educators, and there's no stopping you. You don't have to have a niche. You can just go and just find things you're interested in and just listen and take notes.
I think that's a great assessment of what the experience is. And what I'll add to that is it's kind of like listening to the radio, but it's got that feel of, sometimes you might feel like you're in a conference session, but then some of these Clubhouse rooms can feel like those hallway conversations you have at events, or just sitting around a table, or at a CoffeeEDU, or at an EdCamp. And the possibility for topics is endless. I've talked about in the past, if there's a podcast or a topic you're interested in and there's no podcast for it, you be the one to start that podcast. Clubhouse is, if there's a conversation you want to have and there's nobody having that conversation, start the conversation, and start to connect with people. Last night I was in a room, AJ, I don't know if you wound up coming in, but I was in a room listening to some Super Bowl chatter with Gary Vee and Rich Eisen, from ESPN NFL Network. Mm-hmm. And at one point, Gary Vee had to leave, and Rich Eisen, whoever was helping him moderate, was like, all right, if you want to raise your hand and talk to Rich Eisen, go ahead. I kept listening because I was doing some other work, but he talked to 10, 15 people, and it had the feel of listening to the radio. And for a good chunk of it, he was talking with Eric Stonestreet. He played Cam on Modern Family.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool.
And he was in there, and Eric is a big Chiefs fan, part owner of the Kansas City Royals. But if they had picked me, I could have been just chatting with them. I followed Eric Stonestreet, and then I look oh, who is Eric Stonestreet following on Clubhouse? Who else could I potentially connect with? And again, we're talking about connecting and having conversations with people, and getting that personal development. I think this is going to be a game changer, folks. It's going to be a game changer for educators.
And I think, Chris, one of the coolest things is you can find those people that you want to listen to, and you can kind of follow them, and you get notifications about when they open a room, whenever they talk. And that's what I've been doing with a lot of the people a lot of the authors that I really dig. I just kind of follow them, click on that little notification when they start talking. I get a notification. Just more notifications on my phone, but like it's quiet. I don't have to worry about it. I like it. I don't always participate in every chat, but like if there's something I want to say, I can say it. And if I don't get called on to say it, I'll hold on to it and create a podcast about it later.
Yeah. And it's a way, on people's profiles within this app, people are putting, one or both, either their Twitter handle and or their Instagram handle. And people that you might find yourselves listening to a conversation will say, hey, follow the other people in this room because we're all interested in the same topic. We all have the same interests. And, they'll say, my DMs are open, come and connect with me. And I'm pretty sure, for someone like AJ, if he's in a room with an author who he finds value in and they say, connect with me on Twitter and my DMs are open, AJ could instantly go and say, hey, I was just in a room with you on Clubhouse. And now AJ can start that conversation and the author will be like, oh, you were just there. Yeah, I'll talk to you. It's not just getting a random DM out of nowhere. It's like, all right, we share that common interest and we were in the same place at the same time.
I think it's going to open up not just for my interest, but it's going to open up how we do our podcast. It's going to open up who we get on there. I'm learning about new people, like people I've never heard of, because we talk about Twitter, we talk about Instagram. I think like it's so hard to find these people on Clubhouse. I'm like casting a wide net. I'm grabbing some people. I'm following a whole bunch of people, and if those people choose to follow me, great, fine. But I'm meeting tons and tons of educators from around the world who I didn't know existed. And it really is going to help make us stronger.
Again, Clubhouse is iOS only right now. I know they're hoping in the next 6 to 9 months to have an Android version of their app. It's invitation only. So if you are on an iOS device and you'd like to explore this and check it out, ping Stacey, AJ, and myself, because we do have some invites available. So if you'd like to explore it, reach out to us. I currently have 3. And I don't know. And I think once you go through your first 3, I've already gone through my first 3. So I had 6 and then I got 3 more. So the more you kind of invite people, the more opportunities we'll have to invite people to be a part of this. And, we can start a room together. Maybe one day we'll do a podcast PD room, instead of recording an episode, we'll try and do again, it's not recorded. There's no cameras. There's no text. It's just, conversation, audio conversation. And I think that could certainly be very powerful.
Yeah. If you are interested, and I just invited Dave because I know Dave is, might dabble with this. I think, just learning. So if you are interested, DM one of the 3 of us, me, Chris, Stacey, and we need your cell phone number. So that's how you get the invite. We can't just send you like via Twitter. It has to be through a cell phone number. So you have to share your digits.
And, the benefit to that is the people who you see on there, you're seeing the people. So you're not seeing people using fake names and, fake aliases. If you see Gary V on there, it's Gary V. It's not somebody who's pretending to be Gary Vaynerchuk or Stacey Lindis or AJ or me. It's us. You don't see people's phone numbers in the app, but that's how you get in. So you do have to be who you say you are.
And if you are trying to be me, be a better me, please. Just do all the things that I don't do.
And if you're trying to be me, good luck trying to reach who I am. Well, this has been a fun conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we have a podcast about it.
There you go.
There you go.
We don't have a recommendation. We're not ready to do another pod study.
I'll recommend something.
Oh, all right. Go ahead.
I'm going to recommend the podcast Earning Before Learning.
From earning to learning.
From earning to learning. Sorry, Dave.
That's all right.
I thought I had it for a second there. Then I
close.
blanked out. I didn't see it on the screen, and Chris wasn't making fun of me. So from earning to learning.
Dave, pimp your podcast, please. Tell us about it. Where can people find it? Let's go.
All right. So it's From Earning to Learning. And the reason I have that title is we're trying to move students and teachers from thinking about just earning grades to what true learning is. And I'm trying to keep the episode short, and there's going to be a mix. So I'm going through like just one topic at a time. I'm trying to keep it between 6 to 10 minutes an episode. And then I have some guests lined up that I'm pretty excited about. And those will be longer episodes. But, just trying to challenge the status quo and just move people more towards learning. And you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And then I guess from what you told me, everybody else will be picking it up now that it's on those. And then there's a lot of stuff that I have on my website, which is reimagineschools.com. So I'm just trying to put a resource out there for people who are looking to make changes in their classroom and try and cut their learning curve and maybe just have some discussions about what's best for students.
I love
So you
it.
definitely want to check out his podcast. Also, Dave, like we said, when he first came on, he was a former guest of our podcast. That was back in episode 72. That was in April of 2020. Remember that 10 years ago? So if you didn't listen to that episode, go to podcastpd.com/72, where that's where we go really in depth and Dave shines a light on, exploring equity and how we can expand reach when it comes to grading and assessing in schools. And, start there and then jump over to reimagineschools.com and subscribe to his podcast and show him some love. Connect with Dave Frangiosa.
It was a great conversation. Go back and listen.
Thank you.
All right, Stacey, ready for some morning magic?
Well, before we go, Dan has asked the question, and since I don't see him at school anymore, I miss you, Dan. My podcast number is 27.
Oh, I thought he was asking for your phone number. And I was about to
That's
say,
what I
Stacey,
thought
give
he
your
was
phone
asking
number
for,
out.
too. What are we
No,
doing?
he has my phone number.
Oh,
My
okay.
podcast number is 2721. Yeah, Dan and I would joke about this every Wednesday or Thursday whenever he listened on his way to work.
Yeah.
What the hell did you just say?
I hate you.
What was that number, Stacey?
2721.
Oh my goodness.
Great Scott. Anyway, on that note, it is time to say goodbye. So say goodbye, Christopher.
Goodbye, Christopher.
Say goodbye, AJ.
Goodbye, AJ.
Say goodbye, Dave.
Goodbye, Dave.
Goodbye, Podcast PD.